Hi, I'm Catherine Owen, geography teacher and 2025 to 26 president of the Geographical Association. You're listening to the Coffee and Geography podcast. Grab yourself a brew and enjoy the listen.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Coffee and Geography podcast. I am in the office, the wonderful 1950s architecture that is the University of East Anglia's building, and the Tyndall Centre for Climate Change Research. It's not as glamorous as what you might have thought. My office buddy is not here today, so I've got the room to myself. But I have got some company, and that is Steph Gilliver from. Is it Gilliver or Gilliver? I've never asked you. Gilliver or
I know
Gilliver?
it's a weird one. It's Gilliver actually,
Gilliver,
but
right.
yeah.
Who is one of my wonderful climate ambassadors. We're back here in the East again. It's easier for me to get a hold of climate ambassadors in my region to come on the podcast. So, but we've got a bit of a bias towards the East here, but at least people are knowing about the climate ambassador scheme in general, which is great. So how are you doing this morning? It's good to see you again.
Yes, I'm really well, thank you, Kit.
Yeah, so Steph is a wonderful human being who's been helping out a lot with the Climate Ambassador scheme, and this is all about her. She has a love for our natural world and would like to be part of protecting it for future generations. Steph likes to be challenged and to continue to grow with new knowledge and a forward-looking outlook. Her background is in finance, with a shift into sustainable finance 5 years ago, and is now able to focus on helping people achieve good financial outcomes with the opportunity to use their money as a voice and catalyst for positive change. Steph has 2 sons and a partner and is fortunate enough to have rail passes, which enables them to travel both the UK and Europe on the train, mostly for active outdoor holidays. Nice.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about doing that as a family, without getting on my soapbox or going too much into personal details. Traveling to the United States to see family is going to be very difficult in the interim. So, but we're going to make a positive of the situation, and probably we're going to have a long-awaited holiday where we may get a Euro pass and do some Europe using the train. I think that'd be great. What was that experience like? I mean,
do it.
You recommend it?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, and we've been to Slovenia as a family on the sleeper trains, which is just so much fun. The kids absolutely loved it. We've done lots of travel around, the Netherlands and Germany. We're going to go to Luxembourg this year.
Oh, nice.
We do it all on the train, and it's just, that appeals to me and my kind of, wanting to sort of not travel on the planes, but also it's just such a fun way of traveling and seeing other countries. So yeah, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I know the cost for a rail pass is quite a major overlay, but I've been told that actually, in terms of value for money, it's actually exceptionally good value for money. Like if you were to do like all the trips individually, it would be staggeringly more expensive than this Euro rail pass, I hear.
Yeah, I think it is. And I mean, so we do it a different way, but I've heard that too. I've heard lots of people say really good things about them. My friend's used it with her family. And I think there's so many different ways you can get around on the train in Europe. It's really well connected and you've got all the different kind of high speed lines and stuff. So actually, if you've got a bit of time, you can just go all over and see so much of it. So yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, we'll talk about that in person a bit more if we actually start seriously considering the trip, which we probably will do, because the money we save from obviously going to see family and friends in America could be used towards that. It probably actually costs less, I'd imagine, to use the train, the Euro network, than it would be for the trips for us to go to see family. It's a lovely warm sunny day. We were just talking about our solar panels are getting good juice, so I'm just going to show everyone. If you're watching on camera, folks, that's my little app. So I've currently got you can see the reflection of me here as well. You've got 3.7 kilowatts hitting my solar panels now. 3.5 is going into it's being exported, and only 0.3 is being used by the house. And my battery must be fully charged because there's nothing going into my battery. So yeah. So we're solar panels are literally making hay when the sun shines.
It's exciting when the sun shines now. It's like, yippee, create my own electricity.
And we've had sustained area of high pressure, which obviously can put pressure on water sources. But, I've been seriously doing everything, and the thing is, when you've got an excess of energy, folks, and this is because Steph and I are with the same energy company, where they sometimes pay you to use electricity, because if they have a surplus, it's got to be used, otherwise it'll be wasted. If they have a green surplus. So yeah, and then at sometimes they do energy saving bonuses as well, don't they? Where you turn off devices for bonuses. So, well, I will mention them because Octopus Energy, folks. So in the link, in the description of every podcast episode, there is a referral link. That if you use that referral link, then all of the referral money that I get goes straight back into supporting this podcast and my educational work. So I don't pocket it personally. So all right. So I will give them a shout out. So they're not technically sponsoring the podcast, but I do use their referral money to fund all this stuff. So yeah. So it's decent. So I've got my water. That's what I was trying to segue into, is the fact that it's warm and it's sunny. I've got some water. But when you come into a coffee house or something like that, what do you usually drink? What's your usual brew?
These days I'd probably go for a green tea if it's the morning, and then like the peppermint tea or something like that in the afternoon, or a rooibos. But I have actually got coffee today because my other half was around and made me a coffee, which is rare. So proper coffee. So a bit of a shout out to Strangers in Norwich, one of their cool. Delicious brews. So yeah, but I don't often drink proper coffee, but occasionally I do.
Strangers. So that's a cafe, right?
They've got cafes, but they've also got a roast. They do the roast their own beans, so you can buy.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and they are just so good. I mean, not the cheapest, but I say I don't drink very much coffee, so it's worth it for the small amount I do. Sort of, I tend to go there.
Okay, folks. So we will put that on the coffee and geography beverage map then, so for you to find out all about them. Right. Okay. So one of the common questions is in this podcast, Steph, is about your sense of geographical identity. So I'm going to share a map, everybody, so we know where Steph is located. So just outside of Norwich, just to the east, along that lovely road that has no problems on it whatsoever, ever, the A47 between Norwich and Great Yarmouth.
Yeah, I know. We do have a train line though in Brundall.
We do have a train line, yeah. This is the infamous Acle Strait, right? So you see here from where it's between Acle and Yarmouth. And I do mean infamous, it's because it's so dead straight, and us Brits are not used to straight roads. A lot of Muppet drivers on there, shall we say? But yeah, you're in the Broadland area. You're kind of nestled between the Norfolk Broads there, just east of Norwich. And the question I like to ask, Steph, is how does your sense of place form your identity? So are you Norfolk born and bred? Have you moved here some point in your life? And also, has there been anywhere you've been in the world which has formulated part of your identity? Yeah. So what does your geography, how has it formed the Steph of today?
That's a good question. If I'm honest, I don't come from Norfolk, but it's definitely feels a big part of who I am now. I've been here for a long time. I came here to be a student at UEA, and I did work in London for a short period of time, but a lot of my friends stayed in Norfolk, and I really loved being here as a student. So I came back, and been here sort of then ever since. I bought a house in the north of the city, and then now I moved out with my partner 10 years ago to near the Broads, which is an amazing area. I feel really privileged to live here. It's beautiful. The marshes are just really special. We live really close to them, and the Broads, and I love the coast here. But yeah, so I guess your question about my identity sort of more broadly, I mean, I was brought up in Manchester, and then we moved to the Midlands when I was 9, and we lived in Redditch, which is near Birmingham, for a few years, and then we moved to Warwick, which is a really nice part of the world as well. So yeah, that's also part of who I am. But if I'm honest, so I guess the Midlands, I've still got some sort of affiliation there, but my mum's now moved to Norfolk, and I don't have it. It's, I guess, the place I am now is definitely feels more suited to me, and how I sort of want to experience life, and being near the sea is just such a bonus. I don't think I'd want to not live near the sea again, to be honest.
Right. Yeah,
So
because the Midlands, if you're not so much the East Midlands, but if you're definitely in the West Midlands, then this area here, folks. So it is definitely you don't really have much
it's
sense
very
of
landlocked, but I mean,
yeah, it's quite landlocked. But
it's really beautiful
oh
in
yeah,
different
most certainly.
ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I have definitely been swayed by Norfolk. So yeah, it's very much. And I guess other places, my family, a lot of my family are from Nottingham, my dad's family.
Oh yeah,
That's
Nottingham.
been an
Yeah.
important place in my life. So I do feel quite connected to Nottingham and Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire as well. So I've had,
Yeah.
spent a lot of time there. So yeah.
Yeah. So your kind of like journey tracks with mine then, because I'm the same. So I was born. So I mean, I keep saying where I'm from, and people in the regular podcast are like, "All right." So now I've actually got a map on the screen. If you can see, it's like there is Harlow, folks, right down here. That's where originally I'm from, and my family's from the East End of London. So, but yeah, I think I was at UEA just a couple of years after you were.
Yeah.
And then I'm exactly the same. I've had the same experience. Once Norfolk got me, it didn't let go. So it's such a amazing part of the country, and yeah, the Broads are something else. It's a very
They're
unique
magic.
landscape.
Yeah, they're magical. It's just a bit of an aside. So where we live, just down the road, is a place called
Just there,
Strumshaw, which has the
yep.
biggest rookery in Europe.
Oh
And
wow, okay.
yeah, it's just absolutely amazing. You go there at sort of dusk time, and they all come in, and you get this kind of swirling of rooks and jackdaws. It's just really magic. If you go in the winter time, particularly, and you see it when they come in.
Yeah, Strumpshaw Fen, yeah, and all.
Yes, Strumshaw
I
Fen
mean,
and Buckingham Marshes is where we usually go and kind of stand and watch them. But yeah, if
wow,
you it
yeah,
might be worth putting a link to that in your notes, because it is there's some information about the size of the rookery, and it's quite a special area as well for
yeah,
biodiversity.
yeah. It looks like a very yeah. This is quintessential rural Norfolk, really, isn't it? It really
Yeah,
is. It's pretty, and yeah, they've got some. There's because I think the
the longhorn cattle.
long-haul cattle were,
Yeah,
they're a staple of the area now. We've got lots of water, because there's a rookery. We've got lots of freshwater birds and butterflies in the area. Yeah, and it's very popular with walkers and everything. So it's just such a beautiful, beautiful area. Yeah, and what a place to have on your doorstep.
yeah. I mean, we go down there a lot. It's really, when you sort of like a sort of place that just helps you kind of calm down, and if you need a little bit of a walk, always go down there. Oh yeah, there's a picture of some
The
of the murmuration of rooks.
mermations, yeah.
Yeah,
That's just incredible, isn't it? And look
it
at that,
is.
that kingfisher. Look at that. Isn't that a beautiful picture? So yeah, folks, if you're not watching if you're still listening to us on the road, which is fine, which I want you to be safe. I hope you're not watching YouTube while you're driving. But yeah, if at the very, very least, listen, if you're a podcaster and you're not a fan of watching YouTube, listen to stuff, fine, whatever. But trust me, if there's a bit of the podcast episode you're like, I want to see that, you can obviously jump onto our YouTube via the link and just scan straight through to that, and you can see these wonderful pictures. But yeah, Strumpshaw Fen and the area around Strumpshaw, what beautiful places. And of course, this is now the time of year where everything is really starting to come out as well.
Yeah, it's
So
all
it's
sort
so
of blooming,
gorgeous.
and yeah.
Yeah. So, that's wonderful. Right. So let's get back more to kind of like you and your background then. So you have a really interesting background where you said like it's kind of like all about finance, and I know you've mentioned before that your degree was in financial law. Was that
Yeah,
right?
accountancy and law. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So it'd be really interesting now to hear about that journey that you've had, where you've had, because when people think of like green careers and climate change, they're like, oh, it's going to be the people who go
Scientists
out on
and
the Broads and
or
do the studies, or the
yeah,
data scientists, like people in this building,
yeah,
and
geographists
stuff
like
like that.
yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't
Mm.
usually, it doesn't, when people think of green careers, the last thing they think about is either lawyers or people work in finance. So it'd be really interesting to hear about your journey from where you started to like how you got into sustainable finance and why you think that is so important right now, given
Yeah.
the current conditions.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I decided quite early on that I wanted to do sort of finance, a sort of quite a practical degree. I then, I did sort of move into that sort of with work, so I did follow that path. Although, just one of the first jobs I did have, which is quite interesting, I worked in the film industry. I did a trainee.
Wow.
I did a traineeship with the Production Guild of Great Britain.
I never
Who
knew that.
Yeah, so they had this. It was the first year they did it, and I was lucky enough. I had my partner's at the time. His dad was in the film industry, so I managed to get in on this amazing year program of working in finance on films. So I did worked on Bond films and with Johnny Depp and stuff. So that was quite an interesting start. But to be honest,
tell me you have a credit at the end of the movie.
I do.
Finance team.
I do on Finding Neverland. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am on there as trainee production accountant.
That is incredible.
The title they give me. Yeah. So no, that was. I guess the thing is, isn't it? Like you do a degree, and actually, even if you want to go into that area, there's lots of different jobs you can do. But I think I realised that I really wanted to do. I wanted something that was, if I'm honest with you, more brain-based. That there was a lot of kind of routine stuff. So I kind of wanted more of a, to go into something that was a bit more strategic. So I worked for a renewable energy company then, again, just as a sort of financial assistant. And I did some of the SEMA qualifications, which I then went on to become a SEMA chartered accountant. I mean, that was brilliant, working in a really small company that had power stations, so renewable energy power stations, actually the one at and the straw burning at Ely. Yeah. And
I've seen the one at from my house.
Yeah, do you? I mean, I don't, it's probably not owned by the same. I mean, obviously, it was owned by a private company, which was venture capitalist funded, and this was 25 years ago. But it was a brilliant place. I mean, there was guys working there who were working on hydrogen fuel cells and things like that. So it was a real sort of interesting kind of company. And I worked in the finance department, so it was quite hands-on with some of the projects as well. So I really enjoyed that. Worked with them, and then I wanted to come back to Norwich, so I did a short stint at Aviva, which I think everyone that ever lives in Norwich seems
more or less, yeah.
If they are in finance, or if they're not in academia or any other, but if the sort of it's a big employer. It was Norwich Union at the time, but Aviva, as it is now, a big employer. So went there, and I went to it was a dentistry company. That was a really interesting job. That was very moving into kind of more strategy, helping them with acquiring dental practices and things like that. And after that, I moved to Virgin Money. I've been with Virgin Money for actually 18 years now, which is bonkers, to be honest with you. And I've done different roles, but they've all been in investments and pensions. I started there as a chartered accountant. I was a financial analyst, but I quickly moved into the commercial area, which I guess for those that don't know, that's sort of where you do kind of new product development, sort of projects, that kind of thing, where you're funding stuff and where you're managing kind of the sort of capital budgets. So I was in that sort of area. Which is kind of where I've stayed, really. And then 5 years ago, I worked it. So I guess before I get to sort of sustainable finance, I worked in investments and pensions. We are an asset manager, so we basically have a pension scheme. We have investment funds, and we, as a pension fund provider, we needed to start to think about how ESG, as they call it, but environmental, social, governance factors impact our investments. So really, I was a technical expert at the time in pensions, and so I moved into sort of helping understand. So, okay, how do we start to assess this? But actually, why did I kind of I was the right fit, but also I put my hand up because I've always wanted to do, if I'm honest with you, a sustainable job. I think at times I've thought, oh God, I've done the wrong path, but actually it became apparent probably about 10 years ago, in a bank, that actually sustainability was going to be critical to the business. So I saw my opportunity, and I pushed that door open and walked straight through, and have done quite a lot of training now on sustainable finance to help us internally have the skills to understand how we manage that. But I guess, for folks that don't know a lot about finance, why is it critical? I mean, I guess most people will know the UK's commitment to transition, and a lot about there's a lot, isn't there? Ed Miliband and the UK energy. I mean, all of that requires a huge amount of investment. So, really, it's critical, and some of that will come from pension schemes. So, it's kind of like our time to step up, really, into the fight that many have been pioneering for a long time.
Yeah, and so you must be aware of, or maybe a fan of, people like Kate Rayworth and the donut economics. And
yes, absolutely, yeah.
She was one of the keynote lecturers at the one of the previous geographical association.
Amazing.
Amazing. And and the circular economy and all that kind of stuff, which is really in my opinion, those kind of things are certainly the way forward. And I'm going to kind of link it now to your role as a climate ambassador, because I'm just going to share my screen again, because one of the major questions we all get as climate ambassador scheme, when schools are doing their climate action plans, is, but where can I get some money? Now, if you've not heard the chat I did, folks, with Dr. Adrian Cooper, climate ambassador from Felixstowe, you need to listen to that chat, because Adrian is a community leader in Felixstowe, like climate change action group and all that kind of stuff. And we actually talked about, well, if you're such a small community group, where do you get your money from? He says, we don't have a budget. He said, we use the community, we utilize community resources. And basically he said, if you don't ask, you don't get. So, but we do know that some things do cost money. And so that will kind of bring into this. So one of our sister projects, folks, which if you are based in England, and you're working in the education sector, you need to get on it. Okay, you need to get on it, and that is the Sustainability Support for Education website. It is a free self-service tool that you can put stuff on there about where you at, what you're doing with your climate action plan and stuff like that, and it will recommend to you resources or sources of funding according to what you want. So this is just their page, about sustainable funding opportunities. There's so many things that you can investigate. So Steph, of course, you as a climate ambassador can recommend websites like this, one of our sister projects, but from a climate ambassador's point of view, when you speak to schools, what's the kind of thing that would you suggest to them if they find out for you, oh, you're from sustainable finance, tell us about money? How would you approach that conversation with a school when they want to talk about finance and funding and grants, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, because I suppose working in sort of investing, it's like I'm not really in a position it's not philanthropic, so I'm not in a grant making area.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But we do, interestingly, I have recently done a qualification on impact investing. We do have a fund which, but that's globally invested. So I guess for my day job, I would have to look at to support them in their local area and help them navigate that. But I think, if they wanted, I could certainly help with any sort of grant application or finding the answers to that question. Because I think some of it is just the connections, isn't it, that the ambassador scheme can help support schools with, so that they can just get that extra bit of support to be able to find out where that information is. So I think that would be probably more what I'd do. But if they were interested in knowing more about sustainable finance, I have done one talk, actually. It was a primary school talk. That was through STEM for Virgin Money, where I went to a maths week, and because
that's right,
and so I talked about responsible investing. So why is that important? And actually, to be honest with you, I think kids, one of the really important pillars of the climate action plan is, green education and careers, and actually linked in quite well. The teachers actually links in quite well with some of the geographical stuff they'd covered in terms of trade and the wider picture of global connections. So actually, even I tried to keep it fairly simple, but it was your money, every single purchase you make has an impact in the world. So there's lots that you can say to different levels, and I think at a kind of secondary school you could probably be more specific about the economics of that, of how economics is what kind of keeps our world sort of flowing round, and that's undergoing a humongous shift, and part of that is investing in the future, a green future. So I think there's lots of different angles if schools wanted to know more about sustainable finance, actually, depending on the sort of audience. And say actually I think there's a need for children to really understand the finance system anyway, isn't there? So
oh my goodness, yes
quite well.
Yeah, financial literacy is so important, and it needs to start from a young age. And one thing I would strongly recommend, folks, right, I actually, so this afternoon actually, folks, I am going to my kids' primary school, who are really good with their climate action planning and stuff like that, and I've come across this grant that they're just within the zone, the minimum distance, maximum distance for. They're just inside of it, right? So we're having a meeting, actually, myself, the sustainability lead, one of the governors, and I've asked my eldest Theo to be there as well, and any other kids from the Green Crusaders team, to talk about what we could apply this money for. And to have Theo and the youngsters involved in this process, it talks about how these systems work, because I don't think our kids are financial literate enough. And I think waiting until they get to, say, year 10 and 11 in secondary school, for me, is too late, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not talking about mortgages and stuff like that, but at least being aware of what a mortgage is.
It's just the principle of kind of, of money and the value of money and how you can save, and even investing, which is kind of a bit more abstract for primary school kids. I mean, they can understand that all of these individual companies, big companies, are trying to get money out of you, essentially, and that actually, like, there's a responsibility for us to make sure that they are acting responsibly and not having negative impacts on the world in selling you trainers and all the other things that you want to buy. So I think even quite a young age, there's unfortunately quite a lot of pressure, isn't there, to buy and be a consumer, I guess. So
yeah, we're having that family in the car conversation, actually, about that, because again, it was Theo who we were talking about current politics, shall we say, and what money should and shouldn't buy you and stuff like that, and what would you do if you were the richest person in the world, those kind of things. And those conversations are so good, like even those informal in the car over the dinner table conversations, and I think they need to happen more often. So that's an example there, folks. So I knew Stephanie was going to give that answer, that she couldn't say, oh yeah, well, I know that it's more about investment is her expertise. But can you see that there are such simple things which can be done? And we've also got the tools, like the funding pages of the Sustainability Support Education website, which can point you towards things that might be of use. And there's actually a lot of things out there which might require a little bit of effort, but they are out there. Like, is there a local wind farm which, as part of their community plans, they've got funding for local community. Can't you tap into
Yeah.
that? What about here in the east of England with Sizewell C, their community fund schemes? You know, if you're in that area, and usually they turn around and say things like, if you're within a certain radius. So actually, the one that I've said, you know, is the Adnams Brewery in Southwold. They have an Adnams Community Fund, and they say if you're within a certain radius of the Adnams Brewery, you can qualify for this funding. So they are out there, folks. It's just a case of you need a little bit of time, and a climate ambassador can help you to find these things. You know, they could be some of the legwork for you. They don't have to come in and give a talk. If they come in for an hour, they can help you with your climate action plan. They can give you do a talk with your kids, do all that kind of stuff. But it can be admin stuff like, can we sit together in a room with a couple of laptops and just search.
Bash through, exactly, totally. And I know I've met sort of others through the scheme. The Let's Go Zero team are really great, and you know, I know that they're a bit stretched, but helping lots of people. But actually, you know, if I wanted, I took a sort of card. If I wanted to ask a question, I'm sort of feel like I'm connected now locally, which and I think there's more of that. I know we're looking to sort of meet up. So I think what's really nice is it's a community that you can then share information to help schools. I think so they're not having to do all that themselves, because that's the hard bit, as you say, isn't it, Kit? Like okay, so what can we get? How can we do it? And
it's right, yeah. And those things where you feel you don't have the time because you're a teacher. I'm an ex-teacher. I know how busy you are. You don't, and the time you don't even have time to do your day job, right? So we understand. And that's why many of us regional hub managers, you know, we are ex-teachers ourselves, because we appreciate the kind of pressure that schools are under. So, but that's why you need to utilise the sister project schemes, Let's Go Zero, Sustainable Sport for Education, National Education Nature Park, and us as climate ambassadors. We can help with some of that legwork, and are happy to. You know, like, so Steph, you've been working with your local primary school, for example. I know you're happy to work with you're one of our. We're trying a buddy system here in the East, and I know you're one of the buddies who's happy for me to reach out to local schools if you'd help out. Give us some examples of how you've been helping out, you know, your local school and in your area. I mean, and also like the sixth form Thorpe St Andrew, you've given them a hand with a few things as well.
So I mean, I've reached out to a couple of local schools. I think just having had a conversation with my local primary school, I think what I felt was they've got great ambitions. They're moving into a new school, so actually they're going to have a really low carbon building, which is great for them. They've got solar panels and all that, so they've kind of ticked off some of the bigger items I think will be hard for schools already. They've also got a blank canvas in terms of the site, so able to plant trees, and so we talked about, so had really nice conversations about kind of rain gardens, and you know, just those areas of really making it nature friendly and being able to survey the site and all that. Use the sort of eco team that they've got. I just came away feeling, yes, great, brilliant, but actually one of the challenges is, as you say, is there's a teacher leading it and they've got a day job, they're moving schools. It's quite chaotic, and I've left it for a few weeks, and once they've moved schools, I'll go back to see how they're getting on. And I think one of the things I did feel like as well was just needing to maybe connect with the governors as well and the head, because actually a lot of the decisions probably like within within the pillars, some of those decisions won't come from teachers. There's a lot that they can do with the climate education and also with the initiatives within the school, but actually quite a bit of it needs to be framed by the heads and the governors at a sort of higher level. So that was interesting, and it made me think, gosh, I should do a kind of governors presentation, or I even said to the teacher, I said, you know, I could come and speak to your governors. So I suppose, that's my initial. So my initial impression from just an individual school, that actually, whilst it's great, they're going to be able to put these plans, but I think actually it is quite a lot for an individual teacher to do in a primary school. It really
is.
So they're really going to need some support, and they're going to need some support with, you know, with leadership as well. So I've reached out to a couple of the other primary schools as well to see if I can help. Again, I think some of them are struggling a little bit with prioritising this. So I think it's a case of, like, if you can facilitate with that sort of offering, and then I can, as climate ambassadors, we can facilitate with offering. It helps to sort of connect. But
Absolutely,
I think, the bigger schools, like working with Thorpe St Andrea High School in Norwich, they're a big school, right? So they've already got quite a bit of help. I think they've had Let's Go Zero help them with their plans. I think that perhaps the bigger academies and bigger schools might have had a bit more help or have more resource to maybe to do this. But it is interesting talking to primary schools, and I wonder if that is representative around the country. Maybe some are getting more help from local authorities than others. And I know Blowfield, they did come, Kit, to one of your events at UEA.
They did, yes.
I found that really helpful. But I think she said she came away like full of great, brilliant. And then the day job gets in the way, and it's like, which is why you need a plan, right? Isn't it? You need a plan. You need it to be broken down. You need some just really simple. We just talked about some really simple things, like just simple initiatives just to get off the ground and get things, the momentum going, so you don't feel that kind of overwhelm of,
you're right. And I think it doesn't have to be big and grand. It could be those small wins. It can even be things that you're doing already that you can maybe tweak to improve. And that's the key important thing. And Stephanie is absolutely right, folks, because I'm showing on the screen, and I'll put a link in the chat for people to look at it. And look, folks, if you're not in England, and I really hope you haven't tuned out, because this is all really interesting stuff. If you're not in England, but you're anywhere and you want to do this in your community, not just your school setting or whatever, this is, it quite clearly states here on the Department for Education's website, it says, identifying your leadership, sustainable leadership instructor. It quite clearly says it doesn't have to be teaching staff, but it's important for them to be involved, and operations need to be involved, the estates team, stuff like that. If you're a multi-academy trust, you can have something at the trust level, and it quite clearly says here that you need to have a diverse team in order for action to happen. It is not designed, it is not meant to be lumped. And I know
on a person.
I know it can be. Sorry, you were going to say?
I was just going to say, I think somewhere as well on that page, I think it might be in that page, it says actually that you should identify at a sort of governor level, and I think it says that you should have a governor that brings this regularly, or is, I guess a bit like you would in a board of directors. You have a board member who is the sustainability representative, and make sure that it's on the agenda every board meeting or governors meeting, and therefore it's, because actually at that level, if it's at that level, this is what we find in companies. If it's at that level, it's more likely to happen, and you're more likely to get support.
Exactly.
Because, and as you say, and then have that ability to say, right, we're going to have a team of people because we've prioritized this at the top, and you're all going to talk to each other, and we're going to keep asking questions about how you're getting on, and that, more to the point, give you the time and help if you need to do it, and I think that, again, that's where ambassadors can come in to support.
So folks, if you're outside of England, this is how any action takes place, right? You've got to have a diverse range of people, and climate action. So the website says, learners need to be involved in this. So not just as learners, but as helping as decision makers to engage the parents and the wider community. The parent teacher association, all that kind of stuff. And as you say here, like this section about governors and trustees and executive leaders,
ensure climate change and sustainability feature on an agenda at key meetings. I mean, as I say, that's it, is make sure that it's there, and it's on their list of things to do, so they're prioritizing it.
Estates management, in fact, at the event that I was at yesterday in Ipswich, there was two people from a high school in Ipswich. One of them was and they were co-sustainability leads. One of them was a member of a senior leadership team. The other one was the estates manager, right?
Great.
And I said, "What are you doing at your school?" He said, "Yeah, everybody's doing something."
Brilliant.
So that is the approach. So if you're feeling overwhelmed or you're putting it on one person, that's the wrong approach. And for goodness sake, don't just silo it straight into your geography or science department, because that is just perpetuating a misconception of the issue only being a geography issue, right? I mean, I know your number one person may be, oh, a geography teacher will be the sustainability lead, because geography, same job, but you're completely missing the point, right? You're completely missing the point. You need to enable all decision makers within your school. And I would argue, you know, I would have been the kind of person, Steph, if I was still teaching in my school, I would have been the kind of person who, in my sustainability lead, I wouldn't have a sustainability lead. I'd have a sustainability team. I might be on it, and I would have at least one or two students with decision-making power in that team. That's well, I did that when I ran the geography department. I had students on it, you know, help me
which
run
is a
the
great
department.
idea, because actually then you get commitment from the children, from, you know, those that that actually the outcomes in, they're about them, aren't they, the students? So I think it's really important, and they've got the energy as well to bring, which is what it kind of needs, the sort of momentum. I guess, just as an aside, this isn't exclusive, I think, to education or schools. Everyone's got to have a climate action plan. Everyone's got to have, they call it transition plans in the corporate world, but they are essentially the same thing. And actually, as an organization, I'm the sort of point person, because I'm the sort of deep expert in our kind of organization, but we have a sustainability working group, because actually it's every single discipline has a part to play in transitioning to a future where we, whether it's the low carbon for schools, or it's thinking about your scope 3 emissions and all of the various impacts. But actually, that's everybody's got a vested interest in that. And as you say, that's also parents have got a role to play in that, and how they get their children to school and thinking about that. But yeah, I think it's really important to do that across the piece, and not silo it or expect somebody to take it on and just do it alone. And I think that the big shift for schools will be if they've got buy-in at the top. I think that's really important, and something I've already witnessed as key.
Yeah, so important. That's fantastic, Steph. Thank you so much for your insights on that. So we're going to move on now, and we're going to do two things at once. We're both going to spill the beans, and we're also going to be barking up the wrong tree. So you could say, and this is you could say, are we barking up the wrong apple tree? You have a love of apples. Tell us more.
I do. I'm mad about them. I love them. I think, and they're so British, aren't they? Like, they're not British actually. They're from sort of Kazakhstan or somewhere originally. But that's my son is my geography Joe, they call him. So he knows all these sort of facts about where things come from. But I fell in love with apple trees probably about 15 years ago, and I've been bonkers about them ever since. And I just love apples. And I've got a garden full of, I'm lucky enough to have a garden full of apple trees. They're all sort of heritage varieties, so unusual, because there's so many different varieties of apples. They're not just the ones you get in the supermarket. So, and I make cider out of them, which is, a sort of personal enjoyment project. So
have you tried to, like, your hand at cider pressing, apple pressing?
Yeah, we do that. Yeah, we've got a big press, and so there's a wild orchard which we go and collect. There's a farmer near here, and I've got an agreement with him because he doesn't use the apples, and we go and collect those in the autumn, and then we have a massive pressing session with friends and the kids. And obviously you can have it just as juice. You need to pasteurize it if you're going to keep it. I don't actually have a pasteurizer, we just make cider out of it, but the kids get to have the juice on the day. So but it's a lot of fun, and I know a lot of communities have orchards. I've been involved with the local one as well when my children were younger and I had a bit more free time. And yes, a lot of communities do apple pressing and stuff. It's a lot of fun.
So wow. I don't want people to descend on this area, but do you have like a an area or a place where you go scrumping and it's like you're in heaven because you're like, there's these natural places, all these places which grow in trees, and I just like to just spend an hour or two there picking some apples.
I think there's orchards all over. I mean, the place that we go to is on a farm, so it's a private land, so we have to get agreement to go on there. But actually, there's loads of apple trees everywhere, and I think they're often. But actually, I would say if people are interested in having a go at apple pressing, just ask people in your community when you get to kind of August, September time, if you know they've got apple trees, and like every year you see they fall to the ground and never use them, or just ask around. And actually, we get apples just from people who've got trees that just don't know what to do with them. They've got abundance. So yeah, I think there's lots of places to pick them. And then we do eat a lot as well. We don't just make cider. We also use a lot for cooking too.
Nice. Right. So the barking at the wrong tree, Steph, is all about me telling you two stories, and you've got to figure out which one's the true story and which one's the fake story.
Okay.
So let me bring these up. I'm not going to display on the screen, obviously, because it will probably give the game away. Okay. So you need to listen very, very carefully, Steph, to these two stories, and I need you to see. I want you to judge whether you think which one is fake and which one is true. Okay. And of course, it's all about apples. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, so story number one, is this true or is this fake? Don't answer after this one. You can opine, but don't answer whether you think it's true or fake. Okay, story number one. Saplings grown from apple pips from Sir Isaac Newton's tree were taken into space by astronaut Tim Peake. Today, Monday, the 13th of January. So when was this published? This was published 2020. The 8 young trees were grown from seeds taken from the flower of Kent tree at Woolsthorpe Manor National Trust in Lincolnshire, the home of the iconic scientist Sir Isaac Newton, who drew out the principles of gravity after seeing apples fall from a tree. Tim Peake took the seeds and went with him where he went into the International Space Station, and then he spent 6 months floating. The seed spent 6 months floating in microgravity as part of the Pips in Space project. All right. And then landed back on Earth in 2016 to be nurtured into young trees. The UK Space Agency, the National Trust, and the Royal Botanical Gardens in Kew worked together. And the Eden Project in Cornwall, Durrell Bank in Cheshire, and the National Physical Laboratory in Middlesex are among the winners of a competition to become one of the homes of the special saplings. I would like you to opine on whether you think that's a little bit. What do you think? Is that a rotten apple, or do you reckon that's a golden delicious? What do you reckon?
You don't make apple trees from seeds. You make them from grafting bits of the original tree. So I would say that's false. That's not true.
Okay, right. So that's your initial guess. Right. So I'll just bring it up the next one. So I don't know how I closed all my tabs where these two stories went. Okay. So here's the next one. So this was published on March 2022. In a surprising turn of events, a small village in England has become the centre of attention due to an extraordinary apple that has baffled scientists and locals alike. The tree, located in the garden of an elderly resident, Miss Margaret Thompson, has been producing apples with unique properties. These apples, dubbed miracle apples, are said to have remarkable health benefits, including boosting the immune system, improving cognitive function, and even reversing the signs of aging. The discovery was made when Miss Thompson had been consuming these apples daily, reported feeling more energetic and useful. This got the attention of researchers from the University of Cambridge and have since conducted some tests and found unusually high levels of antioxidants and other beneficial compounds. The village has seen an influx of visitors eager to get their hands on these apples, and local authorities are considering measures to protect the tree and manage the growing interest. While some skeptics remain, the phenomenon sparked a wave of curiosity and hope, with many wondering if these apples could be the key to unlocking new health breakthroughs. So, what do you think about that one?
Well, it's imminently possible. There's so many different varieties of apple, and yeah, it could be a particular strain that has high antioxidants. So I would say it's possibly more likely to be true.
So Margaret Thompson's probably one of these people who's like, I drink a dram of whiskey and that's my secret to long life. It could be could also be a placebo effect, but
Well,
the
exactly,
University of Cambridge has said there's there's high levels of and other beneficial compounds, but whether it can reverse the sign of aging, I'm not quite sure about.
Well, no, I mean they do say, don't they, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, and they are supposed to be really good for you. So yeah, but whether or not they reverse aging is possibly not.
So yeah, maybe Miss Thompson was a bit exaggerating there. But okay, so are you going to be sticking with the first one is false and the second one is faked?
Yeah, I am. I mean, yeah, I am. I think it's, I'm not sure why. I mean, I suppose you could take pips and make them into, but that isn't really how trees. That's certainly not how you would make a tree from an original source, anyway.
Okay, right. So here comes our dog. Is he barking up the tree? No. Would you believe it? That second story was AI generated.
Oh.
So it's completely made up and false, but taking elements of what you said and what we know about apples. And
yeah.
I just want to demonstrate the use of AI and being careful with our critical thinking and stuff like that. Would you believe, Steph,
they did take pips into, but that's,
they did.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that it seems, I mean, I guess that might be scientific. I know that they do lots of experiments on the International Space Station to sort of see how things affect, but that's certainly not how you would, not how you make apple trees. Normally you graft them onto rootstocks.
Yep. So, and it's very rare you get press releases from the actual government itself, but you can find BBC News articles, everything around it. But yeah, Tim Peake and Andrea led some plant trees at the home of Sir Isaac that were grown from apple seeds taken into space. Yeah,
but they wouldn't be the same tree. They wouldn't be the same tree as the original where they came from. They become different through the pips. So
there you go. So that's why you're a bit skeptical.
That's why I was skeptical. Yeah. It seemed like, but I guess, as you say, they should have realised that, that's what they do, and they have lots of experiments in space just to see what the impact is. So,
yep. So it says here, astronaut Tim Peake said these trees are truly unique. They come from the iconic apple tree that inspired Sir Isaac Newton to ponder these forces of gravitation and continues to by this day. And my mission to space was named Principia in homage to Newton's defining work that include his world-changing ideas about gravity. So, and then so one of these things is being
at Kew.
Yeah, so you can go and see it, folks, at Kew Gardens if you ever visit that. Right, so Steph, we are coming towards the end of our wonderful, wonderful chat. We just have one more thing to do, and that is the We Are All Geographers, where we link all of our guests with each other with a word or a phrase. So last episode, I spoke to wonderful Chris Churchman from London, who is very passionate about soil. So it's quite fitting that we are talking about apples after talking about soil last week. Do check that out, folks. It's a really interesting discussion about how soil is so key when it comes to taking climate action and having soil. Now, Chris took a little bit of a different approach for your 30 seconds, Steph. So he's given you the, and I've just, it's on the top of my side, and I've just left it. Not adjective, not verb. Oh, I don't know. I've completely lost it. Oh, to own. OWN, to own. So you've got to say for 30 seconds, speak of just something where to own. But what to own? What does that mean? What does that mean to you? That is entirely up to you for 30 seconds.
So own.
When you're ready, I'll start the timer.
Hang on, before you do, so to own, as in like to own something.
Just to own. That's all he said. He said to own.
Oh.
I know. You can. I don't know if that's helpful or not, or whether you can take that any way you want. So, do you ready to riff for 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. 30 seconds on to own. Sounds very poetic. Off you go.
To own, well, I would say that we all own the planet, and we all have a responsibility to make our time here something that we can pass on the planet to future generations. And that means that our kind of relationship with the natural world needs to be something that we all bring into our everyday lives and have that as something that we feel connected to and an ownership of.
Yeah. Ownership. Yeah. Well, that's right. I think you pretty much nailed it in the context of our discussion, to be honest. To say ownership and stewardship.
Stewardship, yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's actually stewardship's like an investment term where.
Right.
Yeah, so if you're a pension, which everyone's got a pension, right? So you're an investor, and stewardship is one of the ways that you can actually influence positive change, talking to companies about the impact they're having on the world. So actually, yeah, it's something that I think about in my day-to-day life, as well as being a steward. As you say, we've all got a responsibility to get more connected with nature. I think kids are really good at that. And, thinking back to the Climate Ambassador, actually all of the interactions I've had and that wonderful science fair event that you had.
So good, wasn't it? Yeah.
So great. And all the kids were just, nature, ponds, we need ponds, I love nature, and just so enthused by that. I think, they like wind turbines and talking about that kind of thing, but actually the nature really, it really connects to them. So, yeah.
Oh, I know, it's amazing. So what word or phrase would you like to give to my next guest for 30 seconds?
Okay, so it's Earth Day soon, and it's Our Power, Our Planet is the sort of theme, which is about renewable energy. So I would say that phrase, Our Power, Our Planet. What does that? Yeah.
Nice. Okay, we'll figure out that. So when that gets released, folks, Earth Day will be been and gone. But Earth Day is meant to be But their birthday is meant to be an awareness campaign for the rest of the year, not just.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a sort of
Our Power, Our Planet. Wonderful. Okay, so Steph, was there anybody you want to say hi to, and how can people find you on, say, because I know you've got a LinkedIn account, so how can people find you, what you want to say hi to?
LinkedIn is my kind of mode of social media, and particularly sort of kind of work and stuff. But I mean, I would, if you don't mind, I mean, I would like to just say hi to my family and who I love dearly, and my partner Mark, who helps me make it all happen, and my two boys, Geography Joe and Jean.
I need to meet Geography Joe.
Yeah.
Perhaps Geography Joe and Mini Geography Theo should meet.
Lots of facts.
Oh, it's so nice. Oh, that's great. Well, always love talking to you, Steph, and having your company and working in partnership with you. I mean, it's so great to have you on the team, and I'm very lucky to have you here in the east of England as well. So
I love what you're doing, and it's great. I'm enjoying being part of it.
Oh, and so thank you, and no doubt I'll see you very soon.
Yeah. Cheers.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Coffee and Geography, folks. If you're itching to know more about the Climate Ambassador's awesome work, visit www.climateambassadors.org. Don't forget to follow us on Blue Sky at geogramblings.com and use the CoffeeJogPod hashtag to stay in the loop. Submit your questions for our guests on LinkedIn or Blue Sky with hashtag JogQOverABrew. Keep exploring this amazing world, tackling climate action, and flexing your geography muscles. Stay curious, keep jogging, and keep making waves.